Hello, today we're going to make some cards from Suffolk Puffs. Peggy and I are going to help you. Now, if you're Peggy, Suffolk Puffs are all about chasing them across the room and running off with them, which is what she likes to do. But we're going to make them into cards. We've got Mother's Day coming up, we've got Easter coming up, and you may well have a birthday. Now, Suffolk Puffs are these lovely little flower things, but you may know them as yo-yos because they were rebranded a few years ago and decided to call them yo-yos. Well, actually, Suffolk Puffs is what they were originally. And they were originally a way of using up little scraps of fabric. Sometimes they've been made into toys, sometimes they've been made into quilts, all kinds of things. And we're going to go on a card issue. This is what we're going to do. So I'm going to clear those up so that you can see what we're doing. Maybe I will leave one of them there in the front for us to have a look at and tell you what you need. So the first thing that you're going to need is some fabric, and they can be really quite small pieces of fabric, anything you want. I've gone for these flowery spring-like colours at this time of year, but it's up to you, whatever your vibe is, you can do that. So we need something circular to draw around as well. You might want a cup or a mug or something like that. We're going to draw around with the scissors, with the pencil even. We're going to use the scissors, and we're going to need a needle and thread. Now you need your needle and your thread particularly to match your fabric, so because you don't want to see it. Today I am going to be sewing in a dark one so that you can see it, but really you're better off matching it. For the centre of your Suffolk Puff for this, we're going to need a button. So you need some kind of button for that. For the leaves, I'm going to use some little pieces of green felt, and I'm using, for the stalk, I'm using embroidery thread in green, but you could equally well use green felt tip pen as well if you want to. I've got these little scissors as well to help with the sewing, but one pair of scissors would do. Recently, I've discovered the joy of needle threaders. These little things that you used to get in crackers and throw away. That's a lot of fun now that my eyesight's not quite as good as it was for a tiny little needle, an eye in a needle. So if you want a needle threader, I love them now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut out a circle of fabric. I know you're going to ask me for the amounts. Okay, so this circle that I've cut out here is 9 centimetres. And it's going to make a 5 centimetre yo-yo. So that's the bigger one that I'm showing here. Suffolk Puff, of course, here. So the larger one, so that was a 9 centimetre square, which will then produce a 5 centimetre Suffolk Puff. You can do a smaller one, and that would be a 6 centimetre square. Oh, I've just realised I've just called it square twice. Is that a square? It's a circle. A 6 centimetre circle is going to create a 2.5 centimetre. And when I did the card that had 3 of them on, I used the smaller ones. You can see here we've layered up 2 as well on top. So you can just experiment around with the size that you've got. And we're going to cut out a circle. Thread up using your fantastic needle threader, a nice long thread. This one is 30 centimetres, and I've double threaded it because you're going to be pulling. So because of that, I've put a knot on the end. You're not going to be able to see it, so it's fine to use a knot. It's double threaded on like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a running stitch. Obviously this is a piece of paper, but what I've got here is I've just shown you it a bit bigger. So we're going to sew all the way around the outside with the simplest running stitch. Now you can do quite big running stitches, or you can do quite small running stitches. It's absolutely up to you. If you watch what I'm doing, you will see what's going to happen when we do it. So I'm going to do it on the slightly larger one. So I've got the pattern side downwards so that my knot will be on the inside. So I'm using it on the wrong side, and I am just going to do a running stitch all the way around the outside. So it just looks like that, and that is what I am doing. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there so that you can see that what I'm doing is making a running stitch all the way around the outside. Now you can put it as near to the outside as you dare. I have seen people advocating that you fold in and make a little hem on there, but it's really not necessary with how we're going to use them today at all. So just go near to the edge. That will, of course, be determined by your fabric. If you've got a very fray fabric, you'd be better off going on the inside. If you've got a fabric that's not so fray, you can go right to the edge. Absolutely decide what you're doing with that, whatever you like. You know, you can do that whatever you like as you're going around. So go on the running stitch until you get all the way around to the edge, which is what I've just done there. And you've got it like that, and then, so we've gone like that all the way around, and then you're going to pull it. And when you pull it, it will come up into a puff, like that. Okay. Now at that stage, if you want to, you can put a little bit of stuffing inside it. Amusingly, I did have a little bit of stuffing, and I think very much that Peggy has run off with it, actually, because there was a little bit of cotton wool here. But if you want to, you can put a little bit of cotton wool inside that makes it a little bit fatter. So if I show you, this one doesn't have cotton wool in, and this one does have cotton wool in. But it's not necessary to do that because they're actually quite puffed up like that. So when you pull it together like that, I'm just going to squash it down on the table, and you have got your little Suffolk puff like that. Now the middle bit is untidy. Now sometimes people put Suffolk puffs together like this to make little snakes and toys and arms and things, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. But today, because we're going to be using it as a flower, you can use it that way if you want to, on the smooth side. But I like all those little ruffles, and what we're going to do is get a button. Now, it's always exciting to choose buttons because there's an endless amount of exciting buttons that you can have out there. But I'm going to put a slightly bigger one on today just for you to see. And the button is now going to be sewn on to cover up all of that untidy bit where you had it pulled up. So when you pull it through like that, all the way through, you've got yourself a gorgeous little flower. Now I have pulled that all the way through to the back because we are making cards today. We don't care how untidy this back looks. Now you can sew that on several times. The good thing about cards is that you're not going to be using these forever. You're not going to be washing them or anything like that, so you don't need to worry about it being so too secure. So I've just tied that off with just a knot at the back. But if you wanted to use that as a badge, a bit more like the one I've got here, a badge, you might want to sew that a little bit more firmly. So we're then going to get our card blank. Now you can see that on this one I've layered up some fancy paper and some less fancy paper so that I could write on it on top. This one has got the fancy paper behind it, and the original one just doesn't have that on at all. Now, to stick them on, I'm going to use my glue gun. You can use PVA glue. PVA glue will work perfectly well to do this, but you will then need to make it dry. And I don't want to have to wait for it to dry because I'm going to hold it up in just 1 second to show you. And because of that, I want to be able to do it straight away. But PVA glue would be perfectly good to do this as well. It's the glue gun, so I've got all my stringy bits that I'm going to pull off now and put in the bin. And then I have stuck them like this. Now, you could absolutely get out your felt tip pen and draw a stalk on there if you want to. That's no problem. But I'm going to do this with some embroidery thread. Do you remember when we did prick and stitch? We've got all our good names out today, haven't we? So I've tied a knot in it, and I'm just going to pull that all the way through, remembering the excitement that we can sew on card and then back down again. It depends how confident you are with making it straight. You might want to draw a little line there if you're not so confident with making it straight. If I show you the back of this one, oh, I've covered up the back of that one actually to do that, but I was going to say, if you have a long enough piece of thread, you don't need to keep tying it off. You can just pull it across at the back, or you can tie it off, up to you, whatever you want. Now, when we've got those like that, we're going to then make two really simple, or one if you like, really simple leaf shapes. And we've done that lots of times now. Just cutting out the most simple leaf shape like that. If you were trying to make these look slightly more daffodilly, you've got slightly, if you were using yellow, you've got bigger leaves, because they of course have bigger leaves on. Tulips less so, but it doesn't matter, these are stylized things anyway. So you are just going to stick that on, and you've quite simply made a really gorgeous card there, and these look really, really nice. Layering it up with your different ones here, I've just put a big one and a small one on top of each other, so they've then been sewn together or glued together. You can do that either way. You can sew all the way through. Likewise, you can double up your buttons if you have a big and a small button. They look really nice with just those shirt buttons, the really cheapest kind of buttons like that are really easy to find. With this one, I've decided I'm going to use a little piece of green paper down the middle for a stem, just for it looking a bit different. And the plant pot was made from the packaging that came from the cat food. So it's that thick corrugated card, and it just gives you that lovely 3D effect by using corrugated card, cut out the simplest type of plant pot shape you've got. And I have my fancy papers out for going across, but you could also have just done that out of brown paper or brown card. That would have looked really nice too. You can personalise this by writing someone's name like Mum for Mother's Day on there. If you're thinking about the writing on this one, you need to go back to the calligraphy course, because this is called brush lettering, and there's a whole course on there on another video you might want to have a look at. Suffolk Puffs. This one is using it as a running stitch to make there. I'm just going to show you this little one which has what's called a Yorkshire button in the middle. I went on a course to just make that yesterday, and I was very excited to be able to make them out of thread. There's nothing in there except thread, and that was very exciting. I will put some pictures on my Instagram so that you can have a look at those a little bit closer. There's also Dorset buttons, which would make a lovely middle there, so that's nearly every county covered, isn't it? So we're starting with our simple circle. We're doing a running stitch around the edge, pulling tight, and then putting a button on to cover it and sticking it down. And you end up with these really nice, just found that. It was sitting there. But I actually prefer them without the stuffing in. It depends how puffy you want them to look. But if you want them to look really puffy, you can put that bit of stuffing in. And I'm sorry to Peggy, because of course it wasn't her fault. But if you do want it to look a bit fatter, it could look like that. And you can make those cards for anything you like. See you soon. Bye.